I hope your days are bright and sunny. Today we're talking about censorship on two different fronts. The UK Online and Safety Act of 2023 went into full effect this year, and MasterCard and Visa are under fire for pressuring Steam and itch.io to delist games from their store pages. In their own words, the UK Online Safety Act of 2023 is a new set of laws that protects children and adults online. Protects them online from what? Sex and terrorists. The illegal content duties are not just about removing existing illegal content, they are also about stopping it from appearing at all. But before getting into the list and details, I do have to take an aside to say that I, personally, for the most part, don't much care for the Think of the Children wrapper that gets used to push surveillance and moderation laws. Because that's what this is. To moderate something, you have to be able to monitor it. And then we get into the weeds with the right to privacy, censorship, what is art, what is commerce. But it's much easier to just skip all that dialogue by saying it's for the children or to protect from terrorism. If we want to talk about those things, let's talk about those things. Many things can be true at the same time. I think the UK and the US don't do a good job in balancing for privacy, moderation, expression, and commerce. I think we should think of the children, or for the children, until they're no longer children at least. I also think using children as an excuse is a forced play. It's rash, obtuse, and will have many knock-on effects like killing smaller businesses, stunting artistic expression, and giving the government too much control they probably shouldn't have it. But maybe those are intended effects. By saying this is for the children, you are reframing the entire discussion and pushing away criticism. I am rubber, you are glue. Anything you say against me bounces off of me and implies that you are a sexual predator. I'm being silly but serious, as Technology Secretary Peter Kyle has already done this. He's accused critics of the act as essentially siding with Jimmy Savile. Jess Phillips, the Home Office Minister for Safeguarding and Violence Against Women and Girls, also labeled critics as empowering modern-day Jimmy Saviles. Americans who don't know, that is bad. I don't think there's an American equivalent I could compare him to. He was a big-time DJ from the 60s to the 80s, then did a big-time children's TV show that was kind of like Make-A-Wish from the 70s to the 90s, did a lot of charity work, got a knighthood, and used all that as a cover for the things he was doing behind the scenes to hundreds of children, elderly, and dead bodies. If you want to learn more, I can recommend the Netflix documentary Jimmy Savile, A British Horror Story. It's harrowing stuff and not the kind of man you'd want someone saying you're siding with. Think of the children as an effective straw man, and I will go hard drive for hard drive. The only criminal thing you'll find on mine is how often I end up with folders with the same name or folders I accidentally dragged into other folders. Now to the actual list itself. Here's the stuff that you're supposed to keep away from the wandering eyes of children. I'm not disagreeing, I just have problems with the phrasing, like the word encourages. What is a depiction? What is an encouragement? Content which depicts or encourages serious violence or injury. Mario Kart 8 was rated E for everyone and warned of comic mischief. Mario Kart World is rated E for everyone and warns of mild fantasy violence. The general list for all audiences is even more expansive and somehow less specific. What the hell does relating to mean? There's a fine line between a snuff film and the Passion of the Christ, but it never includes the Bible, does it? And not to be too graphic, but what is extreme pornography? Is that when you do a wheelie with your willy out? To be less facetious and more specific, because so many experiences come down to interpretation, who is to say what is and is not encouragement or pornographic? If you see a pineapple, do you immediately assume it's sexual? The correct answer is only if it's upside down. How about drag? How about gay people? How about attractive people? How about attractive people in revealing clothing? Anecdotally, I find prudes have dirty minds on par with gooners. Porn is in the eye of the member holder. This is a roundabout, pedantic rambling, Frost, and kind of gross. Welcome to the humanities, babe. But yes, let's talk about the actual implementation of the moderation. Who gets to blow the whistle and be the referee of the internet? According to this act, it's the Office of Communications, referred to as Ofcom, a government-approved regulatory and competition authority. I'm not really sure how they run their setup, but I hope it's not like how we run some of the setups in America that have to fill out a quota to justify their existence, essentially incentivizing them to find problems where there aren't any for funding. A quick example is how we had a problem with police officers having to fill out ticket quotas, which made them more trigger-happy with citations at the end of every month. And of course, I'm concerned when it comes to lobbying, as Ofcom was called out in 2017 for its own anti-competitive practices. One should always take bias into consideration. In February of 2025, Ofcom was found to be insufficiently impartial in its treatment of GB News. Being accused of lacking a backbone and having too many conflicts of interest aren't traits you want in a regulation agency. You'd want them to be more like the Untouchables without the racism towards Italians. And how is this act shaping up currently? In the UK, various services and platforms are now restricted until you verify you are of age through a photo check, ID check, credit check, bank check, etc. check. Uploading this information does expose people to more privacy and security risks. You are vulnerable if the sites get hacked. However, people are already finding their way around these checks through the use of a VPN. Proton remarked that after the Online Safety Act went into effect, their VPN signups surged by more than 1,400%. In related news, some Brits found that you can get around Discord's age verification thanks to Death Stranding's photo mode. The children and the terrorists have won by using a fictionalized depiction of Norman Reedus. What does Kojima have to say for himself? As the battle for online safety continues, will the next step be to ban VPNs or to walk the act back and reconsider its letter and execution? On the MasterCard and Visa side of things, hundreds of games with mature content were taken down from Steam and itch.io after the group of prudes at Collective Shout sent an open letter to payment processors asking them to cease processing payments on the 2 video game storefronts for hosting games that depict, quote, rape, incest, and child sexual abuse themed games, unquote. The conversation around this one has been difficult to have once again because of the think of the children straw man. One game specifically, No Mercy, is especially heinous in its gleeful depiction of sexual violence, so it's really easy to conflate criticism of censorship with standing up for No Mercy itself. What is a slippery slope? And what is a wet spot that needs a caution sign? I personally am not the guy making the argument for No Mercy's existence. I will be the guy asking where the line is being drawn. It starts at No Mercy, but will it stay at No Mercy? Collective Shout have already gone after Grand Theft Auto 5 in 2014 and Detroit Become Human in 2018. How long before it gets to, say, Counter-Strike because it depicts terrorists? Aphrodite in Hades 2. What Remains of Edith Finch? Baldur's Gate 3. Personally, I'm a case-by-case kind of guy, but that kind of self-moderation is generally seen as wasteful. itch.io, I understand having more problems with it, but I am wagging my finger at Valve just a little. Of anyone, they should have the money for better filtering. That's the real story here, Valve's laissez-faire attitude backfiring on them once more. The government will always get into your business one way or another, so you have 2 choices. Moderate yourself, or wait for the government to moderate it for you. And you don't want the government to moderate for you because they know little and use big hammers. Plot twist, this wasn't a case of government overstep, this was payment processors. On August 1st, MasterCard asserted that their standards are based on rule of law. They allow all lawful purchases on their network. Valve countered this, saying that payment processors pointed to MasterCard's Rule 5.12.7, which prohibits illegal transactions and anything that may damage the goodwill of the corporation or reflect negatively on the marks. Basically, if they deem content as a brand risk, then they can deny the sale, and if it is sold, then they may pull away payment processing for the entire storefront. There are many ways to censor a cat, but frequently it comes from the government and merchant side disguised as caring for the children's. This is nothing new. Even this type of video, in a sense, is tricky to put out on YouTube because it covers what advertisers deem to be sensitive material or content that isn't suitable for children, even after I've already marked it as not suitable for children. However, I don't expect all these services and storefronts to take this to the face. Right now, most are hastily complying just to keep their businesses open. But as time goes on, I expect to see more court cases like the one Wikipedia is pursuing. I expect to see more petitions. I anticipate better moderation, or at least better sorting, because let's be honest, lads, some of these storefronts are so terrible they should be criminal. And I imagine someone, maybe Valve, will be developing a work around these pesky payment processors so they're not caught with their pants down again. Or maybe more payment processors get into the space now that there's a demand for more competition from a brand that's not as timid with its public image. And before we go, because I'm in the habit of sharing things I enjoy, today's recommendation is the Dresden Files series, or at the very least the first 2 books. Stormfront and Full Moon by Jim Butcher. Fantasy meets noir detective. You can imagine why that got my attention. Fair warning, it is a bit graphic at times. For those of you who are more academically inclined, I'm currently going through Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. I'd call it a statistical analysis of the factors that lead to success that we normally don't consider, such as what month you were born in. I'm not sponsored by any of these, I'm just showing off that I recently learned how to read.